Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it certainly appears as though the Ukrainian leadership or someone in Ukraine is starting to figure out that they're nothing but cannon fodder, and they're always going to be playing second fiddle. That's all. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and once again, I'm coming from. I've found myself a corner in the conference room in the office, and we're going to talk. Let's start with an article. Let's look at some articles here. Let's see what in the dickens is Garland Nixon talking about here with this business of. Let me see. Do we have it here? Yes, we do. Let's start with this article. There's a growing disenchantment with the U.S. among Ukrainians over its perceived lack of commitment to their defense, the Wall Street Journal has reported, citing the director of the Center for International Studies at the Odessa National University, Vladimir Debolyv, something or other, told the newspaper in an article on Monday that the swift action from the U.S. and its NATO allies to fend off a massive Iranian missile and drone strike on Israel at the weekend stands in stark contrast to their apparent reluctance to beef up Ukraine's air defenses. Ukrainians are beginning to sour on the U.S. The scholar noted that Washington played a key role in the first 2 years of the war, but now, of course, there's a huge slowdown. Rather than helping Ukraine create the kind of air defense network Israel has, the West has provided Kiev with a patchwork of equipment, the Wall Street Journal noted. Now, let's go to one other article. Let's see here. There's a second one. These poor bastards are starting to wake up. Here we go. This is numero 2. Let me make sure this is right. Let me get it this way since I'm in the office and things are a little more tenuous, shall we say. All right, here we go. Kiev demands Israel-style security guarantees. Oh, they demand, do they? I demand. You know what? It's like Kiev is saying, I demand that you leave your wife for me. This is the mistress, right? I demand that you leave your wife for me. You told me you were going to leave your wife for me. Bad news. But you said you just had to save a little more money. You said you were going to wait till the kid, well, as soon as the kids turned 18, the kids are now 29. You told, why won't you leave your wife for the mistress? They ain't leaving their wife for the mistress. You were only good for one thing. Catching bullets. That's all you were ever good for, Kiev. Your job was to catch bullets. We tried to tell you that they were happy. Slavs killing Slavs. They were thrilled. In fact, they told you they were happy, right? What happened? Lindsey Graham said, look, this is the best money we ever spent. Russians dying. And he didn't mention Ukrainians dying. You know why? Because that wasn't part of the concern. It was simply as this. Yeah, we're killing Russians. What about Ukrainians? You know what he'd have said? I don't understand the question. All right, let's continue. Kiev wants security guarantees from its Western backers similar to the level of protection that the U.S. provides Israel. Ooh, yeah, good luck with that, fellas. An agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine must work no worse than the American memorandum with Israel, the effectiveness of which was confirmed by joint actions of the allies during the deflection of the mass attack on Israel by Iran, right? They'll go on to say, putting NATO forces directly in contact with Russian forces, I think that would be a dangerous escalation, British Foreign Minister David Cameron said on Monday. Instead of Western planes over its skies trying to shoot things down, Ukraine requires air defense systems, right? Look, guys, let's be square. And I think everybody in the chat already knows. They were never, ever anything more than cannon fodder. That was your job. Now, I'll remind you guys of this. And I covered in an article in which one of the leaders of Ukraine said something like, yes, provide us. We are fighting the Russians, so you don't have to. We're protecting Europe. Why? If you don't supply money for us, then Europe will have to fight. They told you You're cannon fodder. And you said, we're happy to be cannon fodder. We'll be cannon fodder so you don't have to be cannon fodder. Now, it was all a fraud, but you volunteered to be cannon fodder. Now, don't get me wrong. The people of Ukraine didn't volunteer to be cannon fodder, but the corrupt oligarchs volunteered them for cannon fodder. And what did they do? I think there's like six stations in Ukraine, and six TV stations, and all of them play the same propaganda. So they brainwashed and propaganda the people. They've been doing it since the 50s. They have been promoting the nationalist, ultra nationalist, dare I say, Nazi ideology there. You know why? Because that's the only way that they could get you stupid enough to attack a country 26 and a half times your size. Think about that. That's like me saying, hey, somebody saying, hey, Garland, what are you going to do? There's a Tyrannosaurus Rex over there. Yeah, give me a knife and I can defeat that Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's like 26 and a half times my size, maybe more, whatever, right? But it's like, yeah, give me that knife. And then I go in there and the Tyrannosaurus Rex bites my arm off, and I'm like, "Hey, that hurt. Hey guys, can you help me out? Yeah, can you put yourselves on the line in front of that Tyrannosaurus Rex and help?" No. What part of you were bait? We were going to put you to be eaten by the Tyrannosaurus Rex while we ran away and escaped. Your job was to be eaten by the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So far, you've only given up one limb. You got more limbs to go. You got your head, the trunk of your body. Maybe he'll bite you a little bit at a time. Your job is to die. My job is to live. So now it's coming to the attention of the Ukrainians, simply reality. Now, people like me, while I'm an evil Russian bot, propaganding, liar, fraud, Putinist lover, whatever, right? So when I said very early, plenty of people like me, you guys, everyone, we were online, not because we hate the Ukrainians and we love the Russians, but because we love everyone. And we said to the Ukrainians, you're being had, man. Come on, look at what they're putting you against. They're really able to convince you that you're going to defeat the same military that took out Napoleon, that slammed the Nazis, and somehow you think that you're better than Hitler's army? You don't even have an air force to speak of. You got nothing. You do not have your own military industrial complex. You had to rely on the West, who also doesn't have much of a military industrial complex. On Russia's border, they could fire at you from their own airspace. They could fire surface-to-surface missiles from their own territory. You were set up from the very beginning. And now you wake up one day and say, hey, you look, see, and here's what happens. You get a comparison. You get a comparison. And the comparison is, well, US, you've got two proxy armies, because that's look. People can say what they want about Israel. My position has been the same. My position is the same as Alexander Haig's. My position is the same as JFK Jr.'s. My position is the same as Joe Biden's. And Joe Biden's the president. And Joe Biden said, dare I repeat it again? If Israel didn't exist, we would have to create it to address our interests in the region. What did Haig say? It is our unsinkable aircraft carrier. Israel is a means to project military power in the oil-rich region. But ask yourself this, Ukraine. Israel is the Middle East. Why are they in the Eurovision contest? That's only European countries. They're in the Eurovision contest. Why? Because they are considered. You can think about whatever you want, whether it's religion or who's a Semite and all these things in the tribes of it. You can get another 1,000 years. The European leaders consider Europe to be a European colony, right? It is a how they put it, it is a colony from the garden, according to Joseph Borrell, out in the jungle. It is considered a European colony. So they consider them Europeans. So as far as they're concerned, it doesn't matter if they were on the moon. They're allowed in the Eurovision contest because they're an extension of Europe from the perspective of Europe. From the perspective of the U.S., which is fooling the Europeans, are even fooling themselves, because from the perspective of the U.S. empire, Europe is cannon fodder. economic cannon fodder at least now, and maybe military kind of fodder in the future if they think they can get away with it. Europe's nothing but cannon fodder. But the bottom line is they see uh, uh, Israel as an imperial project that has to be supported. It has to be sustained. It's a long-term colony. They see it as their people sent out, that their colony has to be protected. You are a temporary political tool. That's all you are. You're a political tool, and you're a temporary tool. You're expendable. You're a throwaway tool. In fact, worse than that, you're a tool. It's like a match. Think about a match. A match is a tool from a perspective, but it's a temporary tool. What do? You light the match, and once the match burns up, you throw the ashes and whatever's left of the match aside. It's a very, very valuable tool. But if you're a match, don't work out real well for you, does it? Well, a screwdriver, you use a screwdriver and use it over and over and over again. If somebody tries to steal your screwdriver, when you say, give me my screwdriver back, I will need that. That's a very important tool. I can't do my job without I can't fix things. I can't pry things open. I can't do all the things I need to do without my screwdriver. That is a permanent tool. The match is a temporary tool. Israel is a screwdriver. Ukraine is a match. They will burn the match up, and when they are done, they will discard the ashes and whatever is left of the match. That's the difference. That is it. That is the perfect metaphor for Ukraine. And now the match is saying it wants to be treated like a screwdriver. You were never a screwdriver. You were always a match. In fact, some of the people have voluntarily said, yeah, we're happy to be a match. Yeah, use us so you don't have to use the rest of these people out there. The other thing is this, and this is what's interesting. They, with the help of the CIA, convinced themselves, the Slavic people of Ukraine, right, particularly the ultranationalists, that is, convinced themselves not only that they were considered Europeans by the Europeans, but that they were the ultra-Europeans, right? That they were the Aryans, that they were the true Nazis, the true Aryans to lead the white race, and if you think about it, that's a mistake on two levels. Here's the first level, that it's a drastic error, right? It's a dramatic error because you're a Slavic person and you're saying, oh, I'm the real Aryan white guy. Aren't you then kind of saying, I believe that Aryan white people are superior to Slavs, right? Because I don't want to be a Slav. Not me. No, I'm not a Slavic person. I'm an Aryan white guy, and I'm going to lead the Aryan white people. Meanwhile, the Aryan white people were like, oh, God. Yeah, dude, you're an Aryan white guy. All right. Keep up the good work there, cannon fodder, right? So they convinced themselves, number one, that Aryan Northern European white people were the best, I don't know, stock, as the kind of words that the Nazis use, the best human stock on earth. They convinced themselves of that. And then they convinced themselves that they were part of that stock. Right? Okay. So then they convinced themselves that not only were they of that stock and that stock was superior, but that their ultimate goal, their ultimate destiny was to lead that superior stock. And I'm not a Slav. That would be like me saying, I'm convinced that white people in America are far superior to black people, and I've decided that I'm white. And not only am I white, my job is to lead the white race. People would say, yeah, Garland, I think your job is to go straight to a mental asylum and buy a mirror, right? So I'm like, you're Slavic, and you think that Aryan people are superior to Slavs, and that you also are Aryan, and your job is to lead the Aryan white race. Man, you're fucked up bad. You are in a world of trouble. You're a Slavic person. The first part you should be is like, look, all human beings are equal. No person superior to the other. That's what I believe. Every human being is equal. No one's superior to the other. Bill Gates is not superior to some homeless guy, to a mentally ill person. All human beings should have the same expectations of rights, and all human beings are equal to each other. There's no superior. And no animals are, all animals are equal, but somehow animals are more equal than other. I don't believe that. But these idiots, with the help of the CIA, were able to be convinced that they were part of a ethnic group that they don't even belong to, that the ethnic group that they don't belong to is superior, and that their job is to lead the ethnic group. How could that possibly go wrong? How could that have possibly turned inside out and left them getting wiped out by the Russians, huh? And these same people that taught them that supported that ideology, then were able to convince them that their ultimate destiny was to defeat a country 26 and a half times their size. Your real job, your real destiny in life is to fight the Russians. Garland, your real destiny in life is to defeat that Tyrannosaurus Rex. Well, how can I possibly do that? I will provide you with whatever weapons you need to defeat the Tyrannosaurus Rex. What are we going to start with? A pocket knife. A pocket knife? Yeah, that'll work. Trust me when I tell you that. Anything else, we're going to give you a flashlight. A flashlight, shine it in his eyes, and it'll scare him. He'll run away. Yeah, you could trust me. And as the Tyrannosaurus Rex bites my first arm off, I hear somebody in the background say, "Hey, this is working out great so far. We've got the Tyrannosaurus Rex at a safe distance from us, and it hasn't cost us anything. Of course, it's cost Garland an arm, but that's kind of Garland's arm's job is to get bitten off by the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Great, Garland's doing his job, and it allows us to escape." They literally said to you, "This is the best thing that ever happened to us. All we got to do is spend some money and Russians die." And they didn't even bring you into the conversation. They didn't even mention you at that point. You should have gotten the idea that you were cannon fodder, but nope. Why is that? I did a video on this a while back. Because one of the things the empire is good at is weaponized rage. You see, my friends, the same game that they played in Ukraine, they played in Israel. U.S. empire created this. It wasn't an accident. They convinced the Ukrainian neo-Nazis that they were superior to the Russians, that they should hate the Russians, and ultimately they should be prepared to fight the Russians at any time. All three of those things make no sense in the real world, but the U.S. empire was able to convince the cannon fodder of that. Now, what did they do? They supported the idea to the Israelis that they were superior to 1 billion Arabs, and that if necessary, they may need to fight those Arabs because the Arabs got oil, and hey, we may need that oil. So your job is to be out there on the front lines where all the oil is and be ready to fight the oil, which again is what? Weaponized rage. You should continue to be raged against the Arabs, and you should be prepared to fight them anytime you want. Now, I'll go back to something I said the other day. Big problem. And that is when the U.S. empire created the Nazis to go against the Soviets, then the U.S. and the British Empire created the Nazi war machine to go beat the hell out of the Soviets. They never stop to think you've created a fascist state, and a fascist state's not going to listen to you. It's going to get out of hand. They created Israel, a fascist state. Same thing. They created a fascist state to keep the Muslims at bay. Guess what? And keep access to their oil and control over that region. Guess what? It's a fascist state. It's going to get out of hand. You've created Ukraine. Bad news. You created another fascist state. It's going to get out of hand. You create these fascist states, and ultimately, bad news. You got a fascist state. Fascist states are not much for being rational and taking orders. That ain't what they do. You created that monster, and now you're trying to control the Frankenstein monster. Bad news, man. Bad news. Frankenstein monsters don't listen. They lift you up, they go up to the castle window, and they heave you out the window. You're done. So right now, some of the things that the Ukrainians, they've said to the Ukrainians, look, don't attack the Russian refineries right now because it's driving the price of oil up, and my name's Joe Biden, I'm going to lose. So we don't want to lose, please. You think the fascist state of Ukraine is going to listen to them? No. If you give them some missiles, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're not listening to you. They don't care if you win, lose, or draw. They're a fascist state. That you taught them to hate the Russians. You supported this hate against the Russians. You supported this, neo-Nazi ideology. They ain't listening to you. They ain't listening to you. And now you got the Israelis. That's what really kills me. The Israelis. You supply them with everything. You feed them. You pay everything for them. And now it is nothing but a pure welfare state. They do not even have an economy. They don't have any money, and neither do you, but you're going to borrow more money and give to them. Think about this. Israel doesn't have money. Ukraine doesn't have money. And the US doesn't have money. The US, it builds $1 trillion in debt. I think it's $1 trillion every 100 days. It's broke. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine some guy? So this guy's got a wife and 2.5 kids in a minivan. Things are kind of tough. He's making it. Yeah. Now things get worse and worse. Now he's up to his ears in debt. His wife is like, honey, we're in bed. What should we downsize the home? We get rid of one of the cars. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make it because they're in a lot of debt, which is pretty much everybody, America right now. And meanwhile, he's got a girl on the side and he's got credit cards. And she's like, oh, honey, I can't pay my rent. And he takes his credit card and he pays the rent. Oh, honey, I can't pay for my whatever, my college loans. Oh, I need a new dress. Oh, I need this. I need this. So this guy has this family that he's struggling to address, and he's barely paying his bills on credit cards. And he takes these other credit cards and he borrows money to pump up his mistress's stuff that she wants. That's what it is. Except he's got two mistresses, Ukraine and Israel. So now it's to the point where the guy doesn't feed his wife and kids, doesn't pay his own bills. He's only taking care of his mistresses. That's what it is. The U.S. isn't taking care of home. $60 million they got for the bridge, for the bridge over near my house, right? The Key Bridge. So I've said it all along. I know it well, 12 minutes from my house to the Key Bridge, right? $60 million they've set aside for that infrastructure project. And now they're in the process of passing $60 billion for Ukraine. 1,000 times the amount. So now the guy is literally saying, I will not, I mean, not literally, but figuratively, he's saying, I'm not going to buy food for my family anymore. I'm not paying the bills for my family. I'm giving it all to my mistresses. Both of them, they get it. But here's the thing about it. He's got one young mistress and one who's 45. Bad news for the 45-year-old one. One of them's 25, and she's still the blossom, the bloom is still on the rose, right? She's 25 and she's still shapely and she has no wrinkles and everything's fine. The other one's 45. She's starting to get a little older. The bloom's coming off the rose a little bit. She's human, whatever. He's looking at her saying, sorry, sister, all my money's going to the 25-year-old. It ain't going home. It ain't going to the 45. It's going to the 25-year-old. Guess what? Ukraine, you're about 65. You're like looking like friggin' Phyllis Diller or somebody, Dolly Parton at 81. That's where you are. You got no chance. Sorry. Bad news. You're out of luck. The young babes getting it all. You're getting nothing. Even home ain't getting anything. That's where we are. Israel gets it. Ukraine has had it. And we Americans who actually pay the taxes and stuff like that, we don't even get a seat at the table. As it has been said, the banks get a seat at the table. The tech companies get a seat at the table. The military industrial complex gets a seat at the table. The only people who don't get a seat at the table are the people who bought the frickin' table. That's us. Americans need to wake up. But let me continue. So now Ukraine, here's the thing about it. Okay. So Ukraine's demanding something, right? And as you all know, something I never forgot in my life, certain things, something I never, because a lot of people know my mentor, Paul Robeson Jr., used to always tell me the things that his father said. And one of the things he said is, never ask for something you have a right to demand, right? That was a Paul Robeson thing. Never ask for anything you have a right to demand. We demand justice. We demand this. We demand peace. We demand whatever it is. If you got a right to demand it, demand it. Don't say, will you please? Because the people in power, no. Will you? No. When you say I demand that, because that implies something, it implies leverage. A demand implies leverage. A demand implies an or else there, right? You do it. What happens if not, if you don't? Like, for instance, the 25-year-old could make a demand. Okay, old 60-year-old guy who pays my bills, I demand another $500 a month. Well, what if I don't? Well, certain things are going to get cut off, and you don't want them cut off, do you? No, I don't want them cut off. Then I need another $500 a month. She has leverage. Now, the 45-year-old then says, hey, I'm going to try that too. All right, 60-year-old guy, I want another $500 a month. And what happens if I don't? Man, certain things are going to stop. And he's like, well, I still got the 25-year-old. Fair enough. You got no leverage. And scurry along. you've been replaced by something. You kind of gives me a good excuse to get rid of you anyway. I just wanted to keep the 25-year-old. Things are kind of tight now. This guy's he's juggling his mistresses and at home. That's all the empire's doing. They're juggling their mistresses. And you're the gained a few pounds. You got to, few more pounds around the midsection. You're not, what you used to be. And he's moving on to something younger and cute, prettier. He never loved you. He never cared about you. You deceived yourself into believing that because you wanted to believe it, Ukraine. You wanted to believe that the U.S. empire thought you were wonderful, that they thought you were one of them, that the Europeans also, like you, believed that you were Aryans and part of the superior Aryan race, and you must lead that. Yeah, get out of here with that. You can't, Fodder. They don't like you. They don't like the Russians. How about the Poles? Oh, don't like them. They don't like the Eastern Europeans. Look, it wasn't long ago when the EU started, and there were a lot of Western Europeans like, oh God, the EU, the Eastern European Slavs, all of these lowly people are going to be schlepping into our communities. We don't like this. There were people in Western Europe. Now, keep in mind, because Western Europe was colonial, they were traditionally colonial powers, which meant they went around the world robbing the hell out of the resources out of Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America, Asia, etc. That they did have more money. It was stolen money, but they had more money. Eastern Europe, you weren't colonial powers for the most part. You didn't go around the world. You didn't have access to the Atlantic like they did. See, when they say they're Atlanticists or North Atlantic Treaty Organization, when some people think, they'll say like, well, why would they be going after Asia? For God's sake, Asia's not in the Atlantic. That's Pacific. When they say North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or they say Atlanticist, they don't mean the border of the Atlantic Ocean is what unifies them. What they mean is the access to the Atlantic Ocean is what allowed them to go around the world to get to other places and to rob the hell out of them and steal their resources. So that the Atlanticist was, we have a bridge to other places. We have a means to go to other places and acquire their resources at a very low price. The price of their filthy lives. That was the price, because I'm going to kill them and take their stuff, right? You're in Eastern Europe. Yeah, you don't have a whole lot, you got the Baltic Sea, maybe the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov, if you're lucky, something like that. But you don't have an open shot to the Atlantic where you can just go right over to Africa, overthrow some country, and steal all of their crap. So you were poor and they were rich because of colonial theft. Let's be honest about it. And they saw you as lesser. They saw you in Eastern Europe as, they're the poor people. That's the poor side of town. You were the poor side of town, and you were Slavic people, so they saw you as A, the poor side of town, and B, a lesser beings. And now they came to you and helped to convince you that you were part of the Europe. They convinced the Slavic people and convinced the Eastern Europeans, number one, you're part of Europe. But most importantly, you are a speed bump to slow up the Russians if they attack us. Well, the Russians are never going to attack them. Look at history. They're going to attack the Russians. But what they want to is put up a barrier. The Baltic states, Poland, etc. You guys are a force field. They want to start a war with Russia, have Russia come towards them and knock the hell out of you. They want you to protect them. And when I mean to protect them from Russia, what I mean when I say protect them is not literally protect them. I mean protect them in the way that a force field protects the ship. You ever watch Star Trek? How are the force field doing, Spock? Oh, the force field's 30% depleted, Captain. The force field job is to get destroyed to save the ship. That was your job, Eastern Europe. That still is your job, to be a force field. Then we're going to put some bases up in the Baltics and Poland and blah, blah, blah. In Ukraine, all you got to do, if you want to know what their plan was for Eastern Europe, look at Ukraine. That's the plan for the rest of Eastern Europe, to pick a fight with Russia and to make Russia beat the hell out of you. And then they can just use that as an excuse. Yes, we've got to sanction Russia. We've got to do something. Russia's done terrible things. Why? Well, they've destroyed the Baltic states and Georgia, Finland, Sweden. Everybody, boredom's been wiped out. Darn. I guess we'll just have to sanction them or something like that. Will somebody bring me another cup of wine and possibly some cheese and grapes while I contemplate how I'm going to use the destruction of every human being on the Russian border in Eastern Europe to go out, to use that as a tool to go after the Russians? That's the game plan. That was always the game plan. And so now you wake up And reality is, you get to see the truth in Israel. The U.S. empire has two tools, political tools: Israel and Ukraine. Ukraine's been getting the hell beat out of it for a long time. And so what do they say? We'll help Ukraine, whatever. Okay. Then Israel gets in a mess. And what do they say? We must put all of our energy into Israel. If all of their energy is in Israel, that don't leave much for you. Now they don't want to lose. They're going to lose. It's going to be a catastrophic loss for NATO, catastrophic loss, and it is now inevitable. But somehow those poor bastards in Ukraine have gotten the idea, have gotten the thought, have gotten the mindset that they are viewed as equal to the Israelis. And the reason they got it is because that's what the U.S. empire told those bastards. Just like the guy tells the 45-year-old mistress, hey, she says, hey, you got a 25-year-old mistress over here. And the guy says to the 45-year-old, yeah, but you got this still. You're beautiful in your own way. You know, you're experienced and you're mature and all of those things. I view you the same as I do that hot young 45. I mean, that other young child. Doesn't mean anything to me, but I'm just saying you're important too. Okay. And then she says, great, can I have some money? Nah, I'm giving it all to her. But you're just important. From one perspective, I love you the same. You know, it's just right now things are a little tight, so I got to give her every stinking dime of my money, and you ain't getting a penny, you wrinkly old hack. I mean, you dear, sweet, and beloved, a lovely woman of mine. And then she says, I demand. That's what kills me. The Ukrainians are now demanding from the U.S. Not long ago, the discussion was with the Ukrainians. Yes, we'll fight for the EU. We'll fight for NATO. We'll fight for everybody. Give us more stuff and we'll fight for you. And they were like, yeah, good idea, guys. And now it's, we demand something. And they're going to be like, well, we got good news and bad news. The good news is we have some more money and we do have some weapons left. That's the really, really good news. The bad news is it's all going to Israel. You ain't getting none of it. So we got good news and bad news. It's not that we don't have it. It's just that you don't rate. And if we got to lose one, you guys were a project. Israel's a colony. Understand the difference. A colony is considered we consider it part of Europe, part of the empire. You're a project. You're a political tool. Your job was to get destroyed anyway. You were going to get destroyed sooner or later. Why not now? Why not now? And as for Zelensky, Zelensky's done at some point. Think about this. And I think this is the easiest thing to do. They got a bunch of neo-Nazis. My understanding is that the SAS, right, that his protection is Brits or his protection people. All they got to do if he gets too mouthy is say, well, you know what? We got some guys in the Azov battalion that said they can handle your security from that one. We're recalling our SAS guys. How long do you think that is going to last? He's going to get a Colombian necktie, as they say, quickly. So they can threaten to abandon him, or they can just say he was killed in a Russian strike. Here's the problem with him. He's done. He knows too much. The worst thing you can do is know too much, right? They can't take the chance. Look. Isn't this true that when Bojo came to talk about to stop Ukraine from taking the deal, the Istanbul settlement, right? Istanbul Accords, we'll call it. He talked to Zelensky, so Zelensky knows the conversation. Victoria Nuland, Jake Sullivan, Biden, all of these people, who they were talking to? They were talking to Zelensky. CIA was telling him, okay, get behind this green screen. Here, read this to Congress, read this, say this, whatever. He's an actor. He was doing what he's told. At some point now, if he starts to get pissed and says, get me you know, everything that Israel has, and they say no, he might say, oh yeah, what would happen if I tell? What would happen if I tell everything that I know? You'd be destroyed. So I think you better give me this. And you know what they're going to say? Remember Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot too, didn't he? He knew everything. He could have taken us all down. And then all of a sudden, A most unfortunate occurrence happened to Jeffrey Epstein. They've got to, shall we say, they've got to address the Zelensky problem at some point. They can't let this thing be over, and here's Zelensky knowing everything. He could spill the entire beans. He could tell the world things that would make governments in Europe fall, although they're going to fall anyway. He could tell the world stuff that's going to make, Joe Biden's hair plugs stand on end. He could tell the world things and we'd be like, oh my God, they lied to us worse than we thought. Couldn't he? He can't. That can't be allowed to happen now, can it? So I'm suspecting maybe a Russian hypersonic strike, wink, wink, is going to happen at some point if Zelensky keeps running his mouth saying, I want the same thing as Israel. He'll happen to be riding down the road and the Russians will fire a drone, a missile or something like that. And where's Zelensky? And they'll take their hats off and put it over their heart. Poor guy. He stood up against the Russians for these many years. He fought hard. He did the right thing. And then, he met an untimely demise. That is the future. That is the future of Zelensky. But it ain't the future. And probably anybody else. Budanov, if he's still alive, he knows too much. The leaders of Ukraine know too much. Their best bet would be to run to Moscow. Their best bet would be to escape to Moscow, to make a deal, to call Moscow and say, look, let's make a deal. I know I've done wrong. I know I've done terrible things and blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what I'll do. Guarantee me safety to Moscow. Guarantee me immunity from prosecution. I'll come and tell you everything. Just make sure you keep me alive. And you think the Russians wouldn't take that? Why wouldn't they? I would if I was the Russians. I was pissed as I am. I would be. The intelligence is worth it. Really, what do you got for me? Well, I can tell you about the Crocus attack. I can tell you about the bread. I can tell you this and that, blah, blah. I can tell you everything. Fair enough. Tell us where our guys can get you. We'll set it up. Our guys will pick you up. We'll get you a free ticket to Moscow. And you keep your part of the deal. We keep our part of the deal. And there will be people in the Ukrainian hierarchy who will do that. And some of them maybe already be doing it. And if they ain't doing it, I can damn sure believe you they're thinking about it, because Israel has awakened them to realize. And here's the next thing they know. The U.S. is saying we'll do everything we can to defend you from an Iranian attack. And they also know that if Israel ignites something bad, excuse me for yawning, in the Middle East, but those of you who watch my show or watch my live streams are very, very accustomed to me yawning. At any rate, they already know that if Israelis kick this thing off bigger, that they will be dropped like a hot coal. They already know that the U.S. will call them, hey, look, man, here's the deal. Things have gone bad in the Middle East. You're on your own. You are on your yo-yo. You're on your own. That if things get worse, that it's over, that they'll be like, what do we do now? The U.S. will be, what do you mean we? Guys, if I were you, I'd call Moscow, make a deal. Oh, by the way, Zelensky, come here. We got to talk to you. Pow, right between the friggin' running lights. Ooh, he's done. And the Europeans will come whining, oh, what do we do, U.S.? The U.S. is going to be like, what do you mean we? Call Russia or something. Look, we got to warn the Middle East. We got to deal with our oil's through the roof, blah, blah, blah. What are we? Hey, they'll leave everybody hanging. Ultimately, that's what happens. They all get left hanging. And right now, the American people are damn sure left hanging. All right, you guys, I got to get ready to run. I got another radio show I have to do in 15 minutes here in Washington, D.C. I got to run. I just wanted to come in here and yap for a few minutes. So here's what I want you to do. Share this on all your social media platforms. Attack the like button. Dispense with the life of the attack button. Elbow, punch the like button. I want you to take out a baseball bat and mercilessly pound the like button. The like button must die. Please, everybody, 827 people. There's got to have a minimum of 827 likes. So everybody hit the like button. Additionally, Share this on all your social media platforms. And last but not least, you see Buy Me a Coffee, Cash App, Patreon, all that stuff. Anybody who can afford to help the channel, certainly appreciate it. Go to my Rumble channel and become a a follower on my Rumble channel. Go to rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Become a follower over there. Don't forget, Rockfin's free. However, the only way Rockfin stays on the air, they don't do advertisements, is by people who become subscribers. If you can afford to become a subscriber on Rockfin, it would be highly appreciated. It's $14.99 a month if you can afford it. If you can't, just share all this stuff on your social media platform, all your social media platforms. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie Sunderland, A Random Jack, Stephen Russell, Gen X, of course, Chicken Patty. The Chicken Patty is really the philosophical mind, the foundation behind this entire channel. Thank you, Chicken Patty. And of course, Sparky and what is it? Valley S, and on and on and on. Thanks a lot, you all. Peace. I'm out.